Keep your radio dial right here. You're locked into the hottest news station on the planet. Hot 702.5 in FM sound. Blazing today's hip-hop, R&B, and pop music. Keeping your radio on fire. Bringing you the hottest, realest, riskiest talk shows live 24/7. Live on hot7025fm.com.
What's going on, everybody? It's your main man, 360, the poet from the Morning Wood, and I'm here to talk to you about the Sci-Fi Center. It's your Vegas home for science fiction, horror, and fantasy. From comic books, toys, and posters to movie screenings and live events, they've got you covered. Located at 900 Caron Avenue, Suite B209, give them a call, 702-900-4335, or reach them at thescificenter.com.
Yo, it's Tavon Greatness Patterson. Want to listen to Hot 702.5 on the go? Download the Hot 702.5 app on the Apple Store or Google Play Store if you got an Android like me.
Let's get it.
All right, happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Welcome back, everybody. I hope y'all had a great week. Me, myself, actually, you know what? This last week was productive, like in a really good way productive. I got a lot done, a lot taken care of as far as the household and the kids, and schedule changes have been happening like every week, but it's just so that me and they mom are on the same page together. You know, we make sure we help each other out. We support each other with that. So other than that, I mean, my son is in football now, so it's kind of cool to see him be excited about it. You know, preseason is here. Hey, everybody, football's back. We've all been waiting on this for, 6 months? Without football? Yeah, 6 months. But it's back. It's back. It's good to go in effect. My boys are always with me for the games. The girls kind of come over, but it's preseason, so it's not like it's anything major. You know what I mean? But it is fun just to have the football back in the house. The sport of it is real cool. Other than that, there ain't really been nothing too big, except for the fact that I've been going to sleep a little early last few days. I'm not complaining. The only thing I have a statement about is the fact that I'll go to sleep like 9 o'clock and wake up at 4 a.m. and I'm just up the rest of the day. So now I go from 1 to 2 cups of coffee, half calf, by the way. Don't ask me why I don't do fully caffeinated. I just have too much energy. And before I get started today with our main discussion that we're going to talk about, I want to start it off by saying this, that let's try to get through this without pointing the finger and be more on an understanding topic, or understanding with the topic, with the situation at hand. I know some things are kind of hard to look at from the other shoe or be unbiased about it, but I kind of just want to get through it all with y'all, and you can have your opinions or whatever you want to say during or after, but let's talk about it without pointing the finger. Let's hear everything out first and go from there. I'm only going to state facts today, things that are actually on black and white and paper, and I don't want to seem argumentative about anything. So if you feel that way, hit me up afterwards. We can talk about it. We can find out. We can actually talk about it further. But again, I don't want anyone to think that this conversation is about women get sympathy and men don't. That is not the case. The real conversation that I want to talk about today is that why are men so often expected to absorb betrayal, trauma, grief, false accusations, and emotional devastation quietly, while society immediately searches for an explanation for a woman's behavior. And it may not be the whole entire world as a whole, but we're going to talk about some things that we see. There's also an important distinction I would like to make, on air, explaining someone's behavior is not the same as excusing it, right? I don't want that to be the case there. Mental illness, postpartum illness, trauma, infidelity, abuse, or emotional distress, it can provide context without removing accountability, right? So the one thing that I do want to talk about is, how do I say this? Okay, so I'm going to just kind of go into it. It's a couple things online. I'm sure you guys have seen it. As I talk about them, you'll probably know more about it. You'll probably feel like you have a better understanding so much as to what is actually going on. Again, I'm only going to talk about things that have been stated as facts and these things going on, but please feel free to hop in with any discussion you may want. All right. And again, what's good? Welcome back. But we're going to have this conversation that I already know is going to make some people very uncomfortable. I can tell you that right now. And honestly, it's a good thing. I want you to be uncomfortable for this. You're growing. Because sometimes the conversations we need to have are the ones that make us uncomfortable, right? And today we're going to talk about men. Not men as the villains, not men as heroes, not men as providers, not the men as protectors, but we're talking about men as human beings, right? Humans. We're all human at the end of the day. Because sometimes I think society forgets that men have feelings, right? I think that sometimes society kind of puts that on the back end because we're always taught growing up to just chin up and chest out. But we do grieve. We do get cheated on as men. We do get lied to. We definitely get betrayed. We definitely get abused, right? And we get falsely accused of things. We lose children. We lose wives. We lose parents. We lose siblings, right? I've lost my brother. It's been 14 years now that I've lost my brother. And we have our hearts broken, right? We suffer trauma. We experience depression. We experience anxiety. And we experience suicidal thoughts as well as domestic violence and emotional abuse. And sometimes, well, whether you want to admit it or not, nobody asks the men, are you okay? Nobody will ask us, are you okay? Instead, they ask, what did you do? That's the conversation. Why? Why is the first question so often, what did he do to cause this? I think there are other questions you can ask in lieu of that instead of, damn, what happened to him? Now, again, let me be very clear. Be very, very clear. This isn't an episode about saying women are bad, okay? It's not an episode about saying men are innocent, all right? And it damn sure isn't an episode about defending men who actually hurt people. That is not it at all right? If a man hurts somebody, hold him accountable to the fullest, to the highest that you can. Absolutely. And if a woman hurts somebody, hold her accountable too. Okay? That's the standard I want, the same standard. Because equality can't mean believe women when they're victims, but investigate the men until we find a reason she became a victim. And equality also can't mean believe men automatically. No. What I'm saying is investigate everybody. Listen to everybody. Give everybody humanity and hold everybody accountable. We all have to be held accountable one way or another sometimes in our lives at some point. Because a man doesn't become less human because he's a man. And that's where we're going today. I want to talk about who checks on the man, right? Let me ask you something. When a woman goes through something traumatic, what happens? What is the first thing you see? You see people gather around her. Her friends call. Her family checks in. People will say, are you okay? You don't deserve that. Take your time, go to therapy, and protect your peace. Or the other ones is leave him. I'm here for you. And I'm not mad at that. I actually think that's beautiful, right? I love that people support in their own ways. We should support people when they're hurting. That's just a given. We should. But here's my question. Where is that same energy when the person hurting is a man? Where's that same energy? When a man gets cheated on, people laugh. Bro, you got played. Oh, you stupid. Can't believe you let her do you like that. That's crazy. That's wild work. Couldn't be me, though. You know, there's so many different things. But when a woman cheats on a man, suddenly people want to explain it, right? Then there's an issue there. Maybe she wasn't emotionally fulfilled. Maybe he wasn't giving her strength or attention or giving her enough attention. Maybe she felt neglected. Maybe there was a problem in the relationship. Like, okay. But when a man cheats, he's trash. He ain't shit. Leave his ass. Cheaters never change. It's the same behavior, but a different conversation. Okay? And that's what I mean by a double standard. I'm not saying women don't get criticized. They absolutely do. I'm saying there are situations where society seems much more comfortable humanizing female behavior than male behavior. And sometimes that means the man's pain disappears completely, okay? Before I go into the second segment, I want to say something here. There are a lot of people right now, men and women, that are seeing things going on like that or that are unfair to the other gender. and they are speaking up on it, men and women together. Both are doing it. So I say to you all, I appreciate you. I highly respect what you're doing out there. And I'm sure any other man that sees that is very happy to see that somebody else is fighting that fight for him. I say that because I do want to acknowledge that there are a lot of women and men out there that kind of see this side and they call the people out for the bullshit they're doing. Okay, because I don't want anybody to think I'm saying this is everybody. No, there are some people that genuinely know how to stand firm and support in a healthy way. Okay, so I will put that out there. I do want to bring it up, and it's gonna sound crazy, but I want to talk about Lindsay Clancy and the father nobody talks about. Okay, let's talk about one of the most heartbreaking cases we've seen. Very heartbreaking. I don't care if you're man or woman. This is a heartbreaking case to talk about. Still going on. But the Lindsay Clancy case talks about 3 children, 3 lives, a mother accused of killing her children, and a father left behind with something that I don't think most human beings could even comprehend. Think about what that means. Imagine walking into a home expecting to see your family, like an everyday routine. You're expecting to see your family, and instead, your entire world has been destroyed. Okay? 3 children gone. And now your wife is at the center of the case. Now your family is shattered. Now your children are dead. And now your life will never be what it was. And here's where I want to slow down. Because we can debate criminal responsibility. We can debate mental illness. We can debate postpartum psychiatric disorders. We can debate whether somebody knew right from wrong all day long. We can debate the evidence. And that's what courts are for. But before we debate all of that, can we remember something? Something just so simple and easy. There's a father here too. Patrick Clancy lost 3 children. And regardless of what anybody thinks about Lindsay, regardless of what happens legally, that man has to live with the loss of his children for the rest of his life. And I have seen people online immediately trying to analyze him. What did he know? What did he do? What didn't he do? What should he have noticed? Was he working too much? Was he emotionally available? Did he miss signs? Did he fail her? And I'm sitting here thinking, can we let this man grieve? Can we give this man some time and options to grieve? Because there's a dangerous habit we have when a tragedy happens. We want a villain. We want somebody to blame. And sometimes we can't tolerate the fact that something horrific happened and there may not be a simple explanation that makes us feel better. And because Patrick is the husband, because he's the father, because he's the surviving parent, people start asking, what role did he play? But here's the thing. A spouse is not automatically responsible for another adult's actions. You can love somebody deeply. You can live in the same house. You can share children and still not know what is happening inside their mind. Mental illness can be invisible. Suicidal thinking can be invisible. Psychosis can be invisible, and depression can be invisible. And sometimes people hide the darkest things happening inside them from the people closest to them. So before you turn the surviving father into a suspect in your mind, ask yourself, what if this man is simply a father who lost his children, right? What if he doesn't need your theory? What if he needs compassion? What if he needs counseling? What if he needs people to sit beside him and say, you don't have to carry this by yourself. That's the part I don't hear enough, okay? And I want to get into some details about that because you hear a lot of people and they got a lot of things to say. And I want to talk about the facts, right? I want to talk about what happened on January 24th, 2023. Again, Lindsay Clancy was at the family home in Duxbury, Massachusetts, with the couple's 3 children. You got Cora, Dawson, and Callan Clancy. Cora was 5, Dawson was 3, Callan was 8 months old. Patrick left the house to pick up food and medication for the family. When he returned, he found the children seriously injured and Lindsay outside after she had apparently jumped from a second-story window. Patrick called 911 and attempted to get help for the children. All 3 children ultimately died. Lindsay survived the suicide attempt but suffered catastrophic injuries. Horrible injuries is what it seems like. Crazy work. The biggest point regarding Patrick was not charged with killing his children at all. There has been no public criminal case establishing that Patrick murdered Cora, Dawson, or Kaylin. And I hope I say that last name right. The criminal prosecution has instead centered on Lindsay, who was charged with killing the 3 children and attempting to kill herself. That matters enormously because there is a difference between Patrick was the father who was in the house and Patrick murdered his children. The second statement requires evidence. What the prosecution says happened is, according to prosecutors, Lindsay attacked the children while Patrick was away from the home. The children were found with injuries consistent with strangulation, and prosecutors alleged that Lindsay used exercise bands to strangle them. Now, investigators subsequently focused on Lindsay as the perpetrator. The prosecutor's theory has been that Lindsay killed the children and then attempted suicide by jumping from the window. Patrick was the surviving parent and the person who discovered the children. That naturally meant investigators had to establish where he was before the deaths, when he left, when he returned, what he did after returning, whether anyone could have entered the house, whether the physical evidence was consistent with his account, and whether there was evidence connecting him to the killings. That's normal investigative procedure, okay? Being questioned or investigated does not mean someone is considered guilty. And that's a really important distinction for the conversation you're trying to have. There's also a major timeline issue. The publicly reported timeline places Patrick away from the house when the killings occurred. He left the residence to run an errand and return afterwards. And when he came back, he discovered the situation and contacted emergency services right away. That timeline is fundamentally inconsistent with the claim that he secretly murdered the children and then staged everything. Unless there was additional evidence establishing that theory, which we have not seen. That came from social media, by the way. No such publicly established evidence has resulted in Patrick being charged with the murders. What about the claim that the father killed him? That is where the discussion today will get very interesting. Because people sometimes take the father was there and turn it into the father must have done it. He's guilty. But those aren't the same things. Patrick being the children's father does not establish guilt, okay? Patrick discovering the bodies does not establish guilt, all right? And Patrick grieving publicly does not establish guilt either. The mental health issue complicates the case, but doesn't make Patrick responsible. One of the central issues in the Lindsay case has been her mental state. Her defenses argue that she was suffering from severe postpartum psychiatric illness, including postpartum psychosis. Now, the prosecution has disputed aspects of the defense's characterization of her mental state and has pursued the murder charges. But regardless of where the court ultimately lands on Lindsay's mental state, that is a question about Lindsay's responsibility. Now, it doesn't automatically transfer responsibility to Patrick. That's not what that means. What we should not say on here is, or be careful about saying, is that we know Patrick didn't do it. We can't fully come out and say that, right? But the evidence can say that we have a good idea that it wasn't him. Now, it's the stronger than the evidence allows, unless you're specifically referring to the fact that he has not been charged and investigators have publicly pursued Lindsay as the accused perpetrator. A more defensible thing you can say with this is more something like, there is no publicly established evidence that Patrick Clancy murdered his children. He was not charged with their murders. The criminal case has centered on Lindsay Clancy, and the evidence publicly described by prosecutors points towards Lindsay as the person who killed the children. That's a much stronger position, because then we're distinguishing the facts from the assumptions at that point, right? And this is just perfect for the point I'm trying to make on this is, you can make, like, this argument can be made that Patrick is innocent based merely on sympathy. But something like, I'm not asking nobody to feel sorry for Patrick. I'm not asking you to do that because he's a man. I'm asking us to apply the same standard of evidence to a man that we would apply to a woman. If a woman is accused of killing her children, we immediately start asking what happened to her psychologically. Was she suffering? Was she postpartum? Was she overwhelmed? Was she depressed? Was she experiencing psychosis? And those are legitimate questions. But when a man is involved in a tragedy, sometimes the conversation immediately becomes, what did that man do? Patrick Clancy wasn't charged with killing his children. The person charged was Lindsay. So why are we comfortable casually assigning guilt to the father when the actual criminal case doesn't establish that? So where do we come from doing that? You don't have to hate Lindsay to acknowledge what the prosecution alleges. You don't have to hate her for that part, what they allege happened. And you don't have to hate Patrick to acknowledge that there's no publicly established evidence that he murdered his children, okay? That's the problem with assumptions. Once we've decided who the villain is, we stop looking for facts. That's what I don't like about this. I feel like everybody decided that they figured out what the actual issue is and what it was, and they just stopped looking for facts at that point because they were like, well, there's nothing else to make me feel like somebody else did it because this is what told me that this was the case, and I'm going to just go off of what this says. I'm not going to listen to nothing else, talk about nothing else. I'm going to just go off of here. But there's an even bigger point to that. You can advocate for compassion towards Lindsay's mental health circumstances while simultaneously demanding compassion and fairness for Patrick. Those positions are not contradictory. You know what I mean? My goal is to expose the gender double standard in a way, but I'm not asking you to pick a side. I'm asking you to stop deciding someone's guilt based on their gender before the evidence speaks. Because at that point, you're just, again, it's your opinion, and you're entitled to your own opinion, but your opinion doesn't really go over the facts, okay? I say that because, again, this is, and this one will be quick for it. I'll try to get through this part quick because I want to get through the rest of it too. But there's something else I want to talk about, and that's the double standard surrounding opinions about men and women, right? Because I've noticed something, a man can say something critical about women and immediately somebody wants to label him misogynistic. And sometimes rightfully so. I'm not saying you're wrong for that. Sometimes you're rightfully so. If you're genuinely degrading women as a group, call it what it is. I get that, okay? But here's where I think that we have to be honest. A woman can make a sweeping statement about men. Men ain't shit. Men are trash. Men are useless. All men cheat. Men are dogs. You heard it all before. And sometimes it's treated like comedy, empowerment, or simply her telling the truth. But let a man respond with the same energy and suddenly we're having a conversation about his character. That's not equality at all. And I'm not saying women should be allowed to criticize men or shouldn't be allowed to criticize men. They absolutely should, right? Women have every right to have opinions, express frustration, talk about their experiences, and call out bad behavior. Men should have the same right. And I always think it's about how you do it, fellas. So don't try to do something in a weird way and then get mad that the way you try to do it was just not the way that you should have went about it. Like, obviously, you did something in a way that was just possibly inexcusable, if you want to ask me. So I'm not gonna enable BS, if that makes sense. But because if your feminism, but again, men should have the same right, because if your feminism means women are allowed to speak freely, but men have to carefully package every opinion so nobody gets offended, that's not equality. That's just giving one side a larger microphone. Here, use this megaphone instead of the microphone. They'll hear you better. And here's my challenge. Stop defending disrespect based on who said it. If misogyny is wrong, when a man does it, misandry shouldn't become acceptable simply because a woman said it. Hold everybody to the same standard, because equality isn't about deciding whose feelings matter more. Equality means the rules apply to everybody on the same level. That's what that means, right? And then I want to talk about explaining versus excusing, because I think sometimes we may get a little... I think people do a lot of deflecting when it comes to this, if that makes sense. Now here's where I want to challenge everybody, though, because I hear people say, don't judge her. She was mentally ill. Okay, I agree that mental illness can affect behavior. I understand that, and I get it, 1,000%. But let's establish something. Understanding is not the same as excusing, okay? We can say this person was suffering and what they did was horrific. We can say those two things together. That's not a problem. Both statements can exist at the same time. You don't have to choose between one or the other. And that standard should apply to everybody. Everybody. If a woman cheats because she's emotionally unhappy, we can understand why she felt unhappy, but she still cheated, okay? If a man cheats because he felt neglected, we can understand why he felt neglected, but he still cheated, okay? If a woman becomes abusive because she experienced trauma, we can understand her trauma, but abuse is still abuse. If a man becomes abusive because he experienced trauma, same thing. Trauma explains, it doesn't automatically excuse. Mental illness explains, it doesn't automatically erase consequences. And that's the standard I want. I want people to understand that you can hold somebody accountable while still understanding what they're going through. I'm not going to enable any bad behavior because you want me to sympathize with you or empathize with you over something you did that was completely wrong. I say this, let me bring it up here to say to the fellas. I've lost so many friends and associates because they are not fathers. They don't take care of their kids and they don't want to be around their kids. I personally, I'm not going to be around any grown man that cannot take care of his responsibility as a father. Especially if you was like me and didn't have one growing up. I don't even know why you thinking about not being there for them babies. I don't know why. But I've cut off so many people because they just simply cannot be fathers. I don't care how great of a benefit I got from you, how good of a friendship we had. If you cannot be a father to your kids that you birth, I don't care what the circumstances are. We have nothing to talk about. We are on two different playing fields. I'm all inclusive with my kids. I do what I got to be. I'm there for them. I pay attention to everything. So I don't really want to, I'm not going to say that. I'm just not going to say that. So I've cut people off because of that. So again, it's about holding everybody accountable. Do I have female friends that probably ain't the best mothers or had? Yes, and I cut them off too. Same standard. I don't care if you man or woman. If you ain't no parent to these kids, what are we talking about? What are we here for? What are we here for? Okay. This next one, I'm going to bring it up. We don't all have all the details, but from what we know as far as today, because it's okay to change your mind if you have learned new information. But from what we know today, I'm going to talk about this from what I've researched on it and what I have seen about it. Again, nothing has been solidified in stone. There's no, how do you say it? There's photos and stuff, but no like concrete evidence. I guess the photos do kind of count as that in a way. But I want to talk about the situation that has people talking, and it's that Dalton and Sacco. Now, I'm going to start by saying this. I didn't really know too much about these two until everything just blew up recently with social media. I've done research. I've done things. What I am happy to see is that I see a lot of men showing support to Dalton because he explained how he felt, I guess. So you got a lot of other men coming out doing the same thing, showing support behind it. I love the movement, fellas. Keep it up. I just love to see that. Love to see that. Love to see that. Again, we don't have all the details about this. I'm going off of what I believe to know is correct information. Anything else, again, the same thing. We can talk about this later on the back end. But the public conversation surrounding this situation has included allegations that Sacco cheated on Dalton with her security guard. Now, I'm going to be careful here because social media is not a courtroom, okay? We weren't standing in that relationship. We don't know every private conversation. We don't know every single detail. So I'm not here to declare every allegation is fact. But I do want to talk about the reaction, okay? Because this is where the bigger conversation starts. When a man gets cheated on, why is our first instinct sometimes, well, what did he do? Why? Why does the conversation become, maybe he wasn't satisfying her? Maybe he wasn't emotionally available, right? Or maybe he wasn't doing enough. Maybe she was lonely, or maybe, but we can also say, maybe she made a decision, right? That's possible too. Women have agency. Men have agency. Adults make decisions. And sometimes we make terrible decisions, okay? You don't have to manufacture a reason why somebody betrayed their partner. Sometimes the explanation is simply they chose to do it. That's it. They just chose to do it. And if Dalton was betrayed, then Dalton is allowed to be hurt. He's allowed to be embarrassed. He's allowed to be angry. He's allowed to feel humiliated. He's allowed to question himself. He's allowed to grieve the relationship he thought he had, okay? And he shouldn't have to prove that he was a perfect man before we're willing to acknowledge that betrayal hurts. All of y'all know that. Because here's another double standard. A woman gets cheated on. Girl, you don't deserve that. You didn't deserve that. A man gets cheated on and it's, damn, bro, you got caught slipping. Why? Why? Can you tell me? Yeah, it's hard. Why do we turn male pain into comedy? And why is male heartbreak entertainment? Why do we tell men, man up, get over it, go get another one, hit the gym, get some money, move on? What if he doesn't want another woman? What if he loved that woman? What if he's devastated? What if his confidence is destroyed? What if he's questioning his entire understanding of love? What if he's depressed? What if he's suicidal? Hell, are we going to laugh then? Is that what we're going to do? Laugh at him? Crazy work. Crazy work. I say this to say there are so many men out there, and when the man gets cheated on, it's almost laughable because in some way, shape, or form, he's lacking in something. And again, it's not everybody. We're talking about the people that bring it up, the people that talk about it. I say that because no matter what the man is going through, what kind of pain, there's always going to be a double side where people make it into comedy. The biggest thing I like to talk about recently that happened, or not recently, but something we all know, is that big old slap at the Oscars. I saw a man going to defend his wife because he felt like he had to. He felt like his relationship was in a place where if he didn't defend her, it would just go lower than what it is now. It would just be worse off than what it is. And him defending his wife turned into everybody calling him, soft or this and that or whatever the case may be, whatever the issue is going on. But that man went on to the show with her, and I think he was crying on there, and that became a meme. A man will express himself and show what he's going through, and it becomes the next joke. Why is that? I don't think that's fair. We'll get into it, though. Just simmer on it for a second. That's why I'm talking about this today. It's just like, I want y'all to know these men are out here going through it, too. Do you wonder why every 40 seconds there's a male suicide? Stuff like this. Men are feeling like they can't talk, can't open up. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's good, because I think we should do more to help it. I do think men should speak up more, but I am saying, let's help support them and show them that there's more than one way to speak up and get help when you need it, okay? Let's talk about another mother that commits the unthinkable, Andrea Yates, which I'm sure you guys remember this story. If you don't remember, I'll talk to you about it, because it was a long time. I think it was like 20 or 25 years ago, something like that. But it's one of the most disturbing cases in American criminal history, okay? She killed her 5 children in 2001, so 25 years ago. And this case became a major discussion about severe mental illness, postpartum, psychiatric illness, and criminal responsibility. And here's where this connects to today's conversation. The public was forced to confront something uncomfortable. What happened when a mother is the person who harms her children? Because we're culturally conditioned to see mothers as protectors. So when something like this happens, people desperately search for an explanation. Mental illness, postpartum psychosis, depression, medical history, family circumstances, and again, those conversations are important. I don't want to take away from that. But here's my question. Will we have the same willingness to understand the psychological circumstances if the genders were reversed? That's the question. Not should women get sympathy? Yes, absolutely. But should men get it too? Yes, absolutely. I bring that up because why when something like that horrific happens, you're quick to search for an explanation. But when it's a man that does it, you're quick to search for you want the prosecution to do their job and just get them. No details, no evidence, no facts involved, no questions. It's just that he's a man, so he had to have done it. I don't know where that standard came from, that we are men are just always the villain. That's not always the case. And I'm glad for the people out there to see that, that have that confidence in us that know. Because I'm going to go through a few stories here. And again, this is not to attack anybody. It's just to simply point out things that are deemed as unfair to both genders. Okay. Another disturbing example, and I always say disturbing because things like this are disturbing, is Diane Downs. Downs was convicted of shooting her 3 children in 1983 and later convicted of attempting to murder them. She initially claimed a stranger had attacked them, but eventually the evidence established a very different story. Now, I'm not bringing up Diane Downs because I think every case involving a mother and children proves some grand theory about women, because it doesn't. Not at all. I'm bringing it up because it demonstrates something important. Our assumptions about mothers can influence how we interpret tragedy. We have stereotypes about mothers. We have stereotypes about fathers. And stereotypes can become dangerous when they replace evidence. The good mother, the bad father, the grieving mother, the suspicious husband. The protective father, the absent father. We put people into boxes. Then we interpret their behavior through the box, and that's exactly what we need to stop doing, if you ask me. I think we need to start looking at reality for what it is. Taking away those lenses we got that kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but we need to get that away. How about Susan Smith and the search for a scapegoat? You guys remember that one? Susan Smith is another disturbing example. Smith killed her 2 young sons in 1994 and initially claimed that a black man had carjacked her and taken her children. Again, horrible crime, a horrible, horrible crime, a false story, a massive investigation, and ultimately the truth came out. Why does this matter to today's conversation? Because sometimes people create narratives that redirect the blame. And when the public hears a story, they don't always wait for evidence. They pick somebody, they decide who the villain is, and once the public chooses its villain, evidence becomes secondary, like it's non-existent for some reason. That's dangerous, if you ask me. And that's why I'm saying, don't automatically defend the women, but also don't automatically blame men. Don't automatically blame the husband. Don't automatically blame the boyfriend. Don't automatically blame the father. Don't automatically blame the ex. Don't automatically blame the person who looks suspicious on social media. Wait for the evidence. I think my biggest concern right now with everybody is nobody really wants to look at the evidence with everything that goes on. I think everybody sees something that happens, they hear a story, and then they pick who they want to be the victim. They pick who they want to be the victim, and then at that point, it's a wrap. That's the victim they chose. That's the victim it is. They can come out with clear-cut evidence, like with the Lindsay Clancy case. I don't understand how they've got video footage of this man in 2 different locations. They came out and stated that because of the timing and the video footage, there was no possible way he could be the one to murder the children. And then let's think about this. She's came out and admitted that she's done it. Her attorney says she did it. The prosecution says she did it. The evidence shows she's done it. But everybody else says that it was the husband. Hey, if that makes sense to you, I got a bridge in Brooklyn I want to sell you. You know, I got a statue in New York that I want to sell you. You know what I mean? Statue of Liberty. So, let's just think about that for a second before we start really just pointing a finger, before we really deep dive and dig into the evidence, right? Evidence is what matters because that's the facts. That's the proof that they have. I forget the name of the one story where the man, because I get it. There's times where a man has staged it before. Unfortunately, in this case here, there are 2 different cases. Things are not the same. So you can't take the case from somebody else and put it in with this one here. It's just don't make sense, if you ask me. It don't make sense. How about Lorena Bobbitt and the complicated question of female victimhood? Can we talk about that? Now, let's talk about a case that really complicates today's conversation. And I mean really, really complicates it. Lorena Bobbitt, John and Lorena Bobbitt, they are, Lorena became nationally known after severing her husband's penis in 1993. The case became a media spectacle, but there were also allegations of domestic abuse. And this is important because it shows why I don't want today's conversation to become women lie or women always get away with everything. That's too simple. Domestic violence is real. Women experience it, men experience it. And sometimes the victim is a woman. Sometimes the victim is a man. Sometimes both people are deeply unhealthy. Sometimes one person is clearly the aggressor, okay? The point isn't to switch the victim and villain based on gender. That's not the point. The point is find out what actually happened. Like, do some damn research. Find out what actually happened. And if a man says, my wife hit me, don't laugh. Don't laugh at all. If a man says, my girlfriend threatened me, don't say you're bigger than her. You're stronger than her. You can overpower her. If a man says she controls everything I do, don't say just leave. Because women have been telling us for decades that domestic abuse isn't always physical. It can be psychological, financial, sexual, emotional, verbal, coercive. So why does that suddenly become unbelievable when the victim is male? Just something to think about there. Something to think about. Because, I mean, that's a serious thing. The male victim problem is something serious. And let's talk about male victims, because there's a particular kind of shame attached to being a male victim. A woman says, my husband hit me. People say, get away from him. He's a horrible man. Call the police. Put him in jail. A man says, my wife hit me. People say, man, what? Bro, seriously? You let her hit you? And there it is. You let her. That's the language we don't even say. We don't even say she assaulted you. We say you let her. That sentence tells you everything you should want to know. Because apparently a man being victimized isn't enough. He has to explain why he wasn't masculine enough to prevent it. And that is cruel. Very much so cruel. A man can be 6'3", 250 pounds. A former athlete, police officer, a bodybuilder, and he can still be abused. Hell, I feel Superman got abused at times, if you ask me. Because abuse isn't simply about physical strength. And even if he could physically overpower the person, that doesn't mean he should. I say that because a lot of people will come on here and say, oh, if she hit you, why not hit her back? It's not even about that, because it's about the fact that maybe I do know that I can win this fight or this argument or battle, whatever it is. Maybe I can win it. But what are the consequences to me winning? Maybe I'm trying to understand instead of trying to win and beat her. Maybe I want to understand why she's acting like that towards me. Maybe that's what I want to do instead. Maybe I'm not trying to immediately go to the fact of saying I'm a man and I can beat her instead. Maybe I want to know the reasons to why instead of just acting off of emotions. You know, who knows? Who knows? This next one I'm going to talk about because I think we can all agree that this man was treated unfair. I think this is the first time that the majority was on the side of the man to assist him. Now, there were still some people that, you know, didn't like him, didn't want to say nothing, kind of felt like he was in the wrong. But I feel like she should be in jail, if you ask me. I feel like she should be in prison right now. But I'm not a court. I'm not a judge. It's not the courts. So, but I want to talk about Johnny Depp, Amber Heard in the internet courtroom. No, y'all remember all of that, but that was a real big one for us for a while. Remember that situation? Now let's talk about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. And I'm going to be very careful with this one, okay? Because their relationship involves serious allegations from both sides. Both sides. The civil litigation became a massive public spectacle. And whatever somebody personally thinks about either person doesn't really, you know what? One thing the case demonstrated very clearly is how quickly the public turns relationship allegations into a gender war. That's what I will say. People weren't just discussing what happened. They were arguing. Men are victims. Women are victims. Believe women, believe men. And social media became a courtroom. But I like it, how it came a courtroom this time. I'm going to explain. It was dangerous because social media isn't evidence. We know that much for sure. TikTok isn't evidence. A viral clip isn't evidence.
A comment section isn't evidence. And someone's gender, it isn't evidence. The truth doesn't become true because millions of people believe it. And it doesn't become false because millions of people hate it. That's why today's message isn't believe men, it's listen to men, there's a difference. Listen to everybody. Listen to us all before you get to a conclusion about something. Because then you'll understand, why don't men talk? Well, let's talk about that. And here's where this conversation becomes bigger than celebrity cases. Because I just wanted the conversation to get out there. Because the reason some men don't report abuse, I think I was saying some of this earlier, is because they already know how people are going to respond. They're afraid people will laugh. They're afraid somebody will say, you're a man, get over it. They're afraid somebody will ask, how could she overpower you? They're afraid their friends will clown them. They're afraid their family won't believe them. They're afraid their children will look at them differently. They're afraid they'll lose their reputation, so they shut up. And then we turn around and say, men don't communicate. Well, maybe some men aren't communicating because they've learned that vulnerability comes with consequences, which is crazy work. Maybe he tried opening up once and somebody laughed. Crazy, huh? Crazy, ain't it? Maybe he cried and somebody called him weak. Maybe he admitted he was depressed and somebody told him to get over it. Maybe he said, I don't feel loved. And somebody told him, stop being soft. Eventually, you just stop talking. You just don't really have too much more to say. You're like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to say in this case? You know what? It's better to be quiet about it. So I'm going to just do that. I got to make this clear. I hate the gender war. I despise it to the core of my very soul and being. I despise it. I'm trying to stop something before somebody else tries to start it. Again, it's not men versus women. Because I'm tired of that shit. I'm so tired of it. As men, we need women on a whole nother level. Children, women, y'all need us too. Stop acting like y'all can't live without us. We can't live without y'all either. We need each other. Children need healthy parents, not toxic ones. Families need healthy adults, not toxic ones. Communities need healthy people. This conversation isn't about taking empathy away from women. It's about expanding empathy to men. I don't want less compassion for women. I want more compassion for everybody. I don't want fewer resources for female victims. I want men to have resources too. Okay? I don't want women to stop talking about abuse. I want men to feel safe enough to talk about abuse as well. I don't want women to stop talking about mental health. I want men to stop being punished for talking about theirs. That's equality. That's what I want from this. I have just been trying to get to a point where people can understand that men are going to go through shit as well. Whether you like it or not, we're going to go through some stuff too. Am I taking away from the fact that women go through things? Not at all. I think that we're all human. We all go through issues. We all go through problems. My current issue is the support for men going through the same issues. And I'm not telling you that you need to cater and worry about this man every second about what he's doing, what he could be doing, or where things could be going. I'm just saying that maybe once or twice out the week, you'll sit him down and say, hey, everything good? You all right? You need support? You need any help? Or when he's trying to talk to you or express himself to you, y'all hear him out and listen. I work in the funeral industry. I can't tell you how many times these men are coming in and they're grieving, and they feel like it's a crime because they shed a tear, and they feel like that they're very weak because of it. I always reassure them it is okay to not be okay sometimes. You don't have to be perfect 24/7. You are allowed to grieve. The biggest thing I want you to do when you leave here is to grieve. You got the hardest part taken care of is getting the arrangement done. Now go grieve. Go take care of yourself and your mental. I got you from here. I'll make sure things go the way they need to go from here. But you take care of yourself. I will never look at a man that shed a tear in the office with me and say, oh, man, you need to man up and wipe your tears. No, you human. You experienced a loss. You grieving. I expect you to cry. I expect you to shed a tear. If you don't, I'm going to look at you a little crazy. Why you ain't, emotional in a way. So, again, who asked if the man was okay, right? So let me bring this whole thing home. Let me bring it all home for you all. Think about the men you know. Your father, your brother, your husband, your boyfriend, your son, your uncle, your best friend, your coworker, the man who always says, yeah, I'm good. The man who always shows up. The man who pays the bills. The man who fixes everything, right? The man who picks everybody up. That man who everybody calls when there's a problem, ask him something different. Don't ask, what can you do? Ask, how are you? And don't accept, I'm good. Ask again, no, seriously, how are you? Because sometimes the strongest man you know is the man who's barely holding himself together. Sometimes the man everybody depends on has nobody to depend on. And sometimes the man protecting everybody else needs somebody to protect him. And sometimes the man who looks angry is actually hurt. The man who looks distant is actually overwhelmed. The man who looks emotionless has cried more than you'll ever know. The man who looks like he doesn't care may care too damn much. We have to stop treating male vulnerability like a character flaw. Men are humans. Men hurt, grieve, break, and heal. And men deserve compassion. But here's the other side of that. Men also have to learn that being hurt doesn't give us permission to hurt somebody else. That's accountability. That's maturity. That's healing. We can say, I understand why you're hurting without saying you're justified in destroying somebody because you're hurting. And we need to give women that same standard, because empathy without accountability becomes enabling. And accountability without empathy becomes cruelty. We need both. So today, don't just ask, what did he do? Ask what happened to him. Don't just ask, why did he leave? Ask what kept him there. Don't just ask why he's so angry. Ask what hurt him. Don't just say man up. Sometimes tell him you don't have to be strong today. And if you're a man listening right now, if nobody has told you lately, I'm proud of you for making it this far. I'm proud of you for getting out of bed. I'm proud of you for showing up. I'm proud of you for taking care of your children and for going to work when you didn't feel like going. I'm proud of you for surviving things that you never talked about. And if you're hurting, you don't have to hide it just because you're a man. Talk, get help, call somebody, go to therapy, and tell somebody you trust. Because strength isn't pretending you're okay. Strength is being honest enough to admit when you're not. This is Talk is Cheap. I'm Juss Quanni. And today's question is simple. Who checks on the man? Because maybe it's time we started. I'll see y'all next time, and I appreciate you again. Peace, love, and hair grease. I'll catch y'all next week.
Keep your radio dial right here. You're locked into the hottest news station on the planet. Hot 702.5 in FM sound. Blazing today's hip hop, R&B, and pop music. Keeping your radio on fire. Bringing you the hottest, realest, riskiest talk shows live 24/7 on hot702.5fm.com.